Lanyards. Jack Spade back here with you, High Noon Leatherworks, for another leather adventure. And today, we're going to start a new project, and we're going to do a lanyard cell phone case. So, we have a customer that she keeps losing her cell phone, laying it down, and she wants something that she gets used to putting her cell phone in. She doesn't want to wear it on her hip or push it in her pocket. So we're going to make her a lanyard that she can keep her cell phone in, so it's handy all the time and she doesn't lose it. So come on in and let's get started. Alright, so what I've done is I took her dimensions off of the cell phone and wrote them down, and then I took those dimensions, carried it over to a piece of poster board, wrote down what the dimensions were on my pattern when I cut it out, and I will have two of these. I'll have a front and a back, but I will use the same pattern for both pieces so they match perfectly. Then I'm going to cut this leather. I'd say it's probably about 3 ounce, I'm guessing. It's pretty soft, pretty pliable. She said she didn't want anything real hard, like a hard holster or anything. She wanted it soft. Going to make it out of this pretty pre-dyed light brown leather, and it's got some neat patterns in it that I'm going to try to take advantage of. But also, I've got a inlay on the front that I drew out and cut out of a pattern, or made a pattern. And then the way I'm going to do this on the back, this would be the inlay that will go on the front at the top, and it's going to be made out of this alligator skin. So I got a piece of alligator skin and a big bag of scrap that I bought, and I'm going to actually use that as this inlay, and that is going to be used on top of that tan leather. It should look pretty sharp. Then on the back side, I just did a 1 inch by the same width as the back piece of leather, and I'm going to try, if I have enough, to use this alligator skin on that also. And all I'm doing on the back, the front's for decorative, but on the back, the reason I want to do that is I want to stiffen this up so I could put a couple of grommets in it to actually hook the lanyard to. So I don't want to hook the lanyard directly to this leather here because it's pretty soft and pliable. I think if I glue and stitch this alligator skin to it, that's going to make it really tough. So I don't think we'll have any problems pulling the grommets out or anything. So that's the reason I'm doing that on the back. So I've got my 3 pieces, my pattern pieces. 2 of those, the small ones, will be cut out of the alligator skin. I'll use 2 pieces, one for the front, one for the back, for the light brown or the tan. And then I am going to use some contact cement to glue that. I'm getting real low on that one. I may use some of this Gorilla contact adhesive. It works really good. And I got a couple of little cheap hobby brushes. I'll use that on the contact cement. As soon as I get done with those, I'll throw them in the trash. Not worth saving or trying to clean up. And they're real cheap. You can get a whole bag of them at the hobby store for $1.99 or something. So they're really cheap. And then I will be using my stitching machine, my hand crank stitching machine, on this project also. So let's go ahead and let's start cutting some leather. I'll get my pin out, and I will stitch this piece or these two pieces, once I get them cut out, I am going to stitch them inside out and then flip them over so you don't see any of the stitching on the seams. So it's not going to matter if I cut this or mark this with a pen on this outside of the leather, because you're not going to see any of the marks when I cut it out anyway. So I'm going to take advantage of, it's got some really neat markings. You can see that where I'm rubbing my hand, it's darker down through there, and that looks like probably where the back ran on this. So I'm just going to put my pattern on there. And draw around that pattern. And you can do this for any size cell phone. So there's one pattern, or one piece. I'm going to slide it up, and that continues that dark where the spine was, it looks like, and there's even a little bug scar or something on there. It's going to have a lot of character, and I'm going to continue that, and I'm not going to butt them up against one another, but I am going to just leave about a 1/4 inch so I get precise dimensions here. And then I'll trace that pattern out on the leather, and then it is ready to cut. So I'm not going to cut this all the way across because I want to save as much of this as I can for other projects. So I'm just going to go ahead and use my straight edge on my self-healing cutting mat. And I'm sorry, I'm trying not to get in the way of the camera here. And just following those lines. Nice thing about this material, this, like I said, I'm guessing that it's 3 to 4 ounce, probably more 3, is that it cuts really nice. Cuts real smooth. So there's one side of it. I'm going to make that the back, the one that looks like it's got the little bug scar on it. And then move this down and cut the front piece out. And this, I picked this whole entire piece of leather, pretty good sized piece, up at a flea market for $30, and that's going to make a lot of projects. That's a big piece of leather. So anytime I'm out and I find something like that that I know I can make a lot of things out of and be well worth the money, I pick it up. Even if I don't need it right that minute, I know I'll use it for something, so I'm always on the lookout for those. So there's my two pieces, my front, my back, and it's great for a cell phone because it's super soft on the inside. It's almost like a suede on the inside. So there's my front and my back. I'll probably flip it like that. And then let's go ahead and do the alligator for the front. And I want to make sure I get the flattest piece I can get here. But yet try to leave enough that I can do the back. And that may be a little difficult because I need a 1-inch piece that goes all the way across. And I could, if I had to, I could make it a little smaller than 1 inch. So I just kind of keep moving around and try to find the best place I can to cut it out and not use up a ton of leather. And it looks like that's going to be about it. So let me see if I go around, make sure I can see my marks, and it looks like I'm going to be able to see it okay to cut it out. Because it's pretty dark, but it looks like I can see it just fine. So I'll take my straight edge on the top, because the top's the only place where it's straight all the way across. I'm gonna get a nice cut on that. And it's a little more difficult to cut than the other leather because this being an alligator skin, it's got the dimples in it. You can see the back, how it is. You can really see it. So it's a little tougher to cut. I want to double check and make sure I made my cut long enough there. Then it looks like I can run this down the side. I'm going to pop my pattern back on there real quick just to make sure I'm alright there. And the same way on the other side. Gonna cut it straight down. And then I'll have to follow that curvature, that curved line by hand. As long as I can get it in the right light, I can see my mark real easy. See what kind of line I get out of this here. And that should. And there's my cutout for the front. So the front would actually look like that. It's going to make it look real nice. So then what I'm looking for on the back is a piece and it looks like it's just going to be shy of 1 inch, which is not a problem. And I'd rather do that than use a different piece on the back than I am the front, because this is the only alligator I've got, and I'd rather not use something else because it just won't look right, I don't think, not matching. So let me straighten that out, and then I'll use my grid and get as much of that width as I possibly can. And this does fold over right there. They kind of messed that up when they finished this hide. That's probably why this piece is in there. But looks like I can get 3/4 of an inch easy enough. So I'm going to lose a 1/4 inch from my pattern, but that's okay. I'm still going to get what I'm wanting. I'm wanting that piece to stiffen the back of the tan leather so I can put my grommets through it. Instead of putting my grommets for my lanyard right through this, I'm going to mount that on there on the back, and then that'll give me that double thickness, the toughness of the alligator skin and the other leather, and just make it tougher. And then I can use the length here on my pattern. I'll go ahead, mark that on each end. And that alligator skin is a little tough to work with. Like I said, it's a little tougher leather, and it's not flat, so that makes it harder to work with as far as marking on and those types of things. So let's double check that one again, and there's my 3/4 inch piece that goes on the back. So I've got the front with my decorative piece. I got the back with my strip to help support my lanyard. Stiffen that up. So I've got all 4 pieces ready to go. All I need to do is mark this somehow so I know exactly where to put my contact cement. And I think what I'm going to do, I don't want to mark it with a pen or anything because you'll see the line. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line this up and then move it up toward the top just a hair. Take my stylus, take the pointed end of my stylus, and I'm going to go right around the edge of that alligator skin where it's rounded. And it's okay if it isn't perfect, but you don't want that to show up. And you can see it's going to give me that, see that light color that it gives me? That's going to tell me where to stop with my contact cement. And when I put it back on there and put those 2 pieces together and make sure they're even at the top, you don't see that line. Unlike if I would have used a black pen or something, you would see that line. So I'll do that on the front. Do the same thing on the back. Just lightly take that across there. You can just barely see that on there. But good enough to know don't go past that with my contact cement. So that's my next thing, is to get my, I'm going to use a piece of scrap poster board so I don't get it on my cutting mat. And then I want to get this on there as even as I can. I don't want it on there real thick. I try to get it on there very, very even, very, very thin. If you do get some where you don't want it, once it dries, you can take your finger and rub it off, but sometimes you got to be careful because sometimes it'll discolor the leather a little bit, and then that makes a mess of your project. Another nice thing about this contact cement is if you get any on your skin, you can just let it start to cure, and then you just take another finger or thumb and just roll it right off of your skin. It just comes right off. So pretty amazing stuff. Well, it works great. So I'm going to move this over a little bit out of my way, and then I'm going to take the back piece. It's tacky, but it's starting to dry. Get some more of this off my skin. I'm going to take my alligator skin back piece, and this is where you have to be really careful. You want to make sure as you start to lay this together that you have it exactly where you want it, because once you start making contact with that, it's gonna stick. So I'll smash that down. Once I get it smashed down and made contact on there and it's stuck, then I like to take my plastic hammer and just tap that down so that I know I have really good contact with that cement on there. I'll set that aside. Go to my next piece. Again, I want to make sure that I'm right where I want to be before I start pushing this down on there. And again, that'll hold that, that'll help strengthen that and hold that, but it'll hold it in place, won't let it walk around while I'm trying to stitch it. And again, by doing that, tapping that with that mallet, I'm just making sure that I'm making really good contact with that all the way around there. So I'll let that sit for just a few minutes and it'll be ready to stitch. I'll stitch those two pieces first before I put on my contact cement and put these two pieces together in order to do my stitching. So I'll let those sit for just a second. While those are kind of drying, I'll get the camera set up for over at the hand crank stitching machine. So I'll be right back. Alright, I've got my pieces. I let them set and dry for a couple of minutes. And again, that's basically, more than anything, is just to help strengthen the glue, and hold it in place while I do my stitching. I'm going to do this back piece first. I am going to lower the foot. Get my needle up here out of the way. It's so I have it so lubricated that it moves very easy. So, and what I do is I just follow the edge of my foot, my feeder foot. So I'm gonna go ahead and do a couple of stitches. Then I'm going to turn, I'm going to lift that presser foot, turn my presser foot 180 degrees, put it back down so I can back stitch. So I'll do a couple of back stitches, lift my presser foot back up, turn it back another 180 degrees so that I'm going forward, lower my presser foot, and then I can go forward and then continue my stitch. And all I'm doing is letting that presser foot and feed this in, and I'm following the edge of the presser foot. Then I'll raise my presser foot, turn my piece 90 degrees, continue down to the next turn, raise the presser foot, turn it 90 degrees, and then I'm going to turn my last 90 degrees and come back to the top at the beginning. And then I'm going to raise my presser foot the last time, turn it 180 degrees, lower it, and back stitch. my excess thread out and cut that off. So there's the first piece on the back that's stitched, and I like to take those, if at all possible, either actually tie them off on the front and the back, because this thread isn't nearly as thick as like waxed sinew or something I'd be using on a hand if I was hand stitching it. So I like to tie that off and then trim those, and then do the same thing on the back. And I'm not using any, I'm just using a square knot, nothing fancy. I'm going to trim it down real close. And then there's my back, and that's going to be my area that I'm going to put my grommets in for the lanyard. So that's what's going to strengthen that up so it doesn't pull out of there. So there's the first piece. I'm going to go with the front now, and I'm going to start over here on this side, on this corner, on the top right. I'm going to go about 4 or 5 stitches. Then I'm going to raise the presser foot, go 180 degrees, and back stitch. Do the same thing. And then I can lower the presser foot and go forward again. I like to use the side of the presser foot as my guide, and it does get a little more tricky when you're going to stitch around this radius instead of a straight line, but you can still follow the edge of your presser foot. I just normally go a little slower so that I can control where that line is. So I've gotten around my radius. I'll turn, continue, then I'll actually leave the needle in, raise my presser foot, turn it 90 degrees. Now I can come down and complete this straight edge. Get to the end, compressor foot. Go 180 degrees, lock it back down, and I'll go backwards and back stitch that. And then if I wanted to lock that in even more, I could come back around and come back the other way one more time. So it's whatever you would like to do. Again, when I get to the end, I'm going to pull the excess of my thread so I can cut it. And I like to cut it where I have plenty so I can tie without a problem. So take your threads. I always like to snug them up at the end on both of them. And then I'll find my two ends here on the back. Tie those together. And trim them off. Go to the front. Tie those off. Again, I'm just tying them off with a simple square knot. And yes, I did back stitch it and everything, so it's going to be nice tight stitching. But at least when I put that knot in there, I know that stitching's not going anywhere. So I've got my front stitched up, and I've got my back stitched up. And that's just got the decorative alligator onto the leather. So now I'm going to move back over to the bench and do the contact cement on these two pieces together. So I'll see you over there. Alright, so now I've got my decorative alligator skin glued and stitched to the leather that I'm making the case out of. Here's the back. So what I want to do is I want to put these face to face. Is the best way to do that. And I'll put them face to face, put a little bit of contact cement on the edges. That way that'll hold this together as I stitch it and won't let it spread apart or move in any way. So I don't want, all I allowed myself on this was a 1/4 inch all the way around. So I'm going to take my stylus, my straight edge, and I'm just going to mark just by eye right at 1/4 inch with my stylus, so I know where to not exceed putting the glue, just like I did on the alligator skin. And I'm doing 3 sides. I'm doing the bottom, the top, and both sides. Same way on this one. Do the bottom, and both sides. Now, when I stitch this, I'm stitching it inside out. So when I'm done, I'll actually turn this inside out, which may be a chore. It's light enough leather, I don't think it'll be that big a deal, but it may be a little difficult to turn that inside out and get it pushed down, but I use a dowel rod to push the corners down and everything, so we'll see how it works. So before I put all this together with glue like this and get it over there and stitch it, I'm going to go ahead and put my lanyard eyelets, grommets in here, because if I don't, it may make it really difficult once I get this turned inside out to try to get those in there. So I'm going to put those in there first. So I'll get my poly board out. Let me get some hardware here. See what type of grommets that I have. And it looks like I have gold and silver. And then I do believe you use the same setter as the snaps. And I'll use the snap setter base also. So let's see which size punch I need here. And it looks like it's the 5/32 punch. It's going to fit that. So I'm going to put one on each end. And I'm putting these grommets in here so we can put a metal snap from the lanyard on here. I'm going to put one on each end. And you can measure this if you want. I'm just eyeballing it. Put them in there even. I'm going to put the finished side toward the alligator skin. And there's my grommets. So didn't take very long to mount them. That's going to hold them in there nice and tight. That way I don't have to fight with it or try to mess with it once I get my two pieces sewn together. So that's done. I can go ahead and take my front and my back and start putting my glue on there. I am going to use the Gorilla Glue this time. I've got a new brush. And I'm just putting a really small, thin line of that glue right in the middle of that 1/4 inch that I marked. You won't see this because it'll be stitched and turned inside out. and I am not doing this top piece right here. I'll take my brush and then just spread that out down that 1/4 inch. Again, this is really not to adhere it permanently as much as just to hold it nice and snug while I do my stitching. And this contact cement, this Gorilla Glue contact cement, seems to dry so much quicker than the other one, or sets up very, very quickly. So I try to work pretty quick with it. So basically, by not stitching up there at the top all the way, I may go ahead and stitch all the way to the top. We'll see when we get over to the stitching machine. But because what that would do is end up leaving like a flap, and I'm not so sure how well that would work. I think what it would do is end up wearing on the stitching. I probably ought to go all the way to the top with it. But that's okay. I don't have to do that with the glue, because I'll have enough glue down here on the bottom section to hold it while we stitch it. So I'll smooth that out. And again, I find that this Gorilla Glue contact cement, you could see it on the brush, it dries really quick. So I'll set that aside. I got some on my hand, and you can see I'm already just rolling it right off my hand because it dries so quickly. So I'm ready to put these together. Make sure the bottom matches up. The sides match up good. Again, I'll tap that down, make sure I have good contact. I'll let that sit for a couple of minutes, and we'll go over on the stitching machine and we'll finish that part up. I want to make sure that I get my presser foot up here at the top, get my first stitch started. I'm going to go about 4 or 5 stitches. Again, I want to back stitch that. So it's good and locked in. And just makes it that much stronger. Coming up on this where it's 4 thicknesses here, so I'll slow down, make sure I'm getting all the way through. And then I want to spin that around and do my back stitching. doing it down to the two thicknesses, and then I'll spin it back around and come back the other way to finish it off. Pull that out so that I have plenty to tie off. Cut that off. And it's close enough to the end there. I can literally just tie that over the top, since I'm going to run it and turn it inside out anyway. So I'll tie that off, cut that down close, go to the other side, and on this one I'm going to tie it off right on the side. That way you won't see it at all when I turn it inside out. That's what I should have done on the other side. And tie it off on the side. So it's double stitched, back stitched, but it's also tied off, so it's not going to go anywhere. So let's go over back on the bench and let's turn this inside out. Now we're ready to turn this inside out. So that's what's going to make it a little difficult, but not too bad because this isn't super thick leather. Now what I like to do is start with the corners, get my hand in there and get a hold of those and push those inside out, and use a lanyard and use a little wooden dowel and push down to get those corners pushed through. I'll come up to the other one, do the same thing, turn it, take that dowel, push on it, and what that does is help me get that corner pushed down so I can turn this thing inside out. The better you can get that corner pushed down, the more you can start turning the whole thing inside out. And as long as you keep that one hand in there, you can keep feeding it with the hand on the outside until you start pulling it through. And then once you get toward the end, you can start turning the top inside out. And then you can take your dowel rod, I've got a longer one here, and that's when you can really push those corners down. Get your stitching seams flattened out a little more. You can see some of the glue. Well, like I said, all you got to do is rub on it. It comes right off because your stitching's holding it now. And then I can take the dowel, push it, or I can put my hand up in there, pull that down, and push that corner out with my fingers. However you want to do it, whatever is best for you. Then you can flatten the sides out, get your seams flattened out, and use your mallet, flatten those seams. And then there's the finished pouch. Got my accent alligator skin stitched on. Got it turned inside out. Here's the back. It's got my grommets on each end for my lanyard. So there's the finished cell phone pouch. Stay tuned, I'll be right back and I'll show you how I'm going to put the lanyard on it. Alright, so I got my cell phone pouch finished. Here's the cell phone. Mine's just a hair bigger than hers, but it slides right in there. And then I'm fixing the lanyard, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. I just took a piece of lace, leather lace, same color or two-tone, brown and tan, and I put one of these small clips on there that will go clip right onto those grommets, and then I put one end of the lace through that, and I take a small split ring. You see how small it is? It's probably 3/16 of an inch, and this lace is about 1/8 of an inch. So I do cut one end of the lace with a point, and then I put that split ring down the full size end, and I start the pointed end through the split ring. You may have to get you a pair of needle nose so you can grab a hold of that. And the pointed end, I grab a hold of it, and then I just start working that split ring down that lace. And you can grab another set of needle nose and grab a hold of the side of the split ring, like so, and pull on it. And you can see that'll pull that straight through. And that split ring will not come off of there. I mean, it is on there. So just by pressure, that's going to stay on there. It's not going to slide or anything. So that's one end. We'll go to the next end and put the split ring on, then put it through the snap, and then feed the pointed end that I cut off into the snap ring. Looks like I may need to trim that down a little bit, maybe a little too fat. All you need is to get it to where it starts. Once you get it started and you're feeding it through, you get a hold of it with your pliers, then you're in pretty good shape. It's the point where you have to get it through the pliers to start with, or through the snap ring to start with, so you can get the pliers on it. So the key is to get a nice sharp point like that. The sharper the point, the easier it's going to be to get started through that And you can see I can, now that I got that nice and pointed, I can slide that right into that split ring. Kind of pull it through a little bit with my fingernails. Don't pull too hard with your fingernails because you can break your fingernails pretty easy. Then I can grab a hold of that, grab the split ring with another pair of needle nose like I did on the other end. And once you can get those in there, then you can just start pulling it through. Like I said, it's super tight, but once you get pulling it through, just keep pulling it till you get your loop. And don't worry about this piece being too long. You can always cut that off, but that's not going anywhere. So let's make sure that our ends match. And this one is a little long, so let's cut it off to match the other one. I'm just going to cut them off at a little angle. I'm not going to leave that real sharp edge on there. So that's how I cut them off. And then I can go ahead and put my hooks through my eyelets or my grommets. That I put in the pouch. I want to make sure this is nice and straight. My lanyard's nice and straight. It's not all twisted up. I can go ahead and put the second one through. And it's easier using a pair of needle nose so you can smash the hook down to get it through the eyelet. So there's what it looks like. There's the front. There's the back. So the grommets are kind of hidden on the back. You don't even see them in the front. And I'll show you what that looks like. Here's how she'll wear it. Just around her neck. So that way she can carry her phone around and not lose it. It's handy, right there to get to. She don't have to worry. She'll have this around her neck whether her phone's in it or not if she takes her phone out to use it, so she's going to be aware all the time that that phone is either in there or it's not, just because of the weight, if nothing else. But it makes it real handy. You can take it on and off at the end of the day or whatever, no problem. You can get your phone out of there. Pretty simple. The more you use it, the more it'll stretch out a little bit. It'll be real handy. So there's another finished project. I think it turned out pretty good, especially with the accent alligator skin on it, on the front and the back. Again, that back is on there more for strength. The front is more on there for decoration. So other than putting just a little bit of protectant on it, probably put some sheen on there to protect it, this project's done. So I can stick it in the mail and ship it to her. So hopefully she'll be happy with it. Thanks for coming along. Please, if you're not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button for me. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, and for everyone that is subscribed, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching. You know, I do this for fun, so you guys coming along with me, I appreciate it. So please, like I always say, please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.